The Premier League games are coming thick and fast at the moment, and we are here to preview the next game week in today's video. As always, we want to get your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. In today's video, we will be predicting all of the weekend's matches, as well as having a little bit of a reflection on the weekend just gone by as well. Plenty of talking points to dig into. As always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get your predictions in the comments down below. But without any further ado, let's hop into these. And starting out at St Mary's for Southampton up against Manchester United. It was a big win for Southampton over the weekend, 2-1 against Leicester, turning that game around. And the game which sort of set the tempo for Southampton's season. Had they lost that game away to Leicester, things would have been looked upon slightly differently by Southampton's start to the season, had they only had 1 point from their first three. But a big win in the circumstances there. But this one could be a tough one, Manchester United clicking back up into gear against Liverpool on Monday night. Much more what we thought we'd become accustomed to from an Erik ten Hag side in that game against Liverpool. Thought he got the team selection spot on for that game, and those big bold decisions he made prior to the game absolutely paid off. The decision to leave both Harry Maguire and Cristiano Ronaldo on the bench. I thought that forward three looked more fluid, and with Varane in the back line allowed them to be a little bit more aggressive as well. For a prediction in this one, I do think that Southampton will cause Manchester United different threats than what Liverpool posed. We've already seen them come up short against Brighton and Brentford so far, but could that be the momentum kicker to get Man United going for the season? I'm just going to edge them for a 2-1 away victory in this game, with FIFA going for a 1-1 draw. Next then to Brentford up against Everton. Mental game for Brentford at the weekend, ultimately losing 3-2 against Fulham. It was that start from Fulham, they found themselves 2-0 up. Brentford fighting back into the game, getting it back to 2-2 as they had done with their first away game of the season against Leicester, but Mitrovic in the end with the deciding goal. Quite an interesting Twitter spat after as well between Ivan Toney and Mitrovic. I want to hear from you guys down below. Who are you banking on scoring more goals this season? Ivan Toney, could have had a hat-trick in that game. Some real marginal offside calls ultimately meant that one just favoured Fulham in the end. I do think that this is a decent opportunity for Brentford to go ahead and bounce back. Obviously, we saw Everton playing out that 1-0 draw with Nottingham Forest. They went 1-0 down in that game before tying it back to 1-1. I still have a few reservations over Everton away from home this season. Still foresee the majority of their points coming at Goodison this season. With how good Brentford have actually looked in their home matches, I'm going to edge them for a 2-1 home victory in this one, with FIFA going 1-0 Everton. Next then to the Amex for Brighton up against Leeds United. Really looking forward to this one. Brighton, another fantastic performance over the weekend, 2-0 against West Ham. I was backing Brighton to pick up the result there as well, taking advantage of West Ham's poor start to the season. But back-to-back clean sheets for Graham Potter's side, 7 points from a possible 9 so far. Absolutely terrific start. I do think Leeds will potentially cause some problems though. I've also been impressed by their start to the season under Jesse Marsch. That performance against Chelsea absolutely epitomised it. Whatever Thomas Tuchel had to say after that game, I thought that Leeds absolutely got their game plan spot on, particularly throughout midfield in that game. I think that's where Leeds ultimately came out on top. Tyler Adams especially with an absolute worldie of a performance, and then that forward four all being so interchangeable was lovely to watch. Brighton have been a tough nut to crack though, but Leeds I've liked the look of going forward. I'm going to err on the side of caution for this one and go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's going 2-0 Brighton. Next then to Chelsea up against Leicester. Two sides desperately in need of a result given how last weekend went for the pair of them. Chelsea being humiliated by Leeds and coming off the back of that really promising performance against Spurs, but got the game plan really quite wrong in that one. The mistake by Mendy obviously set the tempo for the rest of that game, and a little bit wasteful in the final third once again. It is a decent opportunity, I feel like, for Chelsea to go ahead and bounce back here against the Leicester side, who have looked so vulnerable so far this season. With Leicester, they do have a goal in them, and with the creative sparks they have in the final third, that individual brilliance will carry them through some games. But defensively, it's been so poor yet again, struggling to deal with those high balls coming into the box. It was a long throw-in they were caught out with against Southampton, and then that ball in from James Ward-Prowse. I know that Mendy had a bit of a nightmare for Chelsea at the weekend, but so far this season, Danny Ward has been the biggest Premier League goalkeeper underachiever in terms of XG this far into this season. I do think Chelsea win this one, if I'm being honest. I'm going to go 3-1 Chelsea, with FIFA FIFA going for a 1-1 draw. Next then we head to Liverpool up against Bournemouth. It's not been an easy start for Bournemouth so far, given the fixtures that they've obviously had to play, you know, back to back to back really, going against Man City, then Arsenal and Liverpool. But given how Liverpool have started the season, I mean, there is a chance here that Bournemouth take some points off them. We've already seen Fulham and Crystal Palace go ahead and do it. The performance on Monday night against Manchester United fell way below the standards that they'd set for themselves, and I think that, you know, the injuries are starting to have quite the influence. That midfield three was completely outworked in the end by Manchester United of, you know, Milner, Henderson and Harvey Elliott. And that record of them conceding first in Premier League matches is obviously a concern at this point in time. Bournemouth not great at the weekend against Arsenal, albeit up against a very good side. I think that game got away from them in the first half really, as it did against Manchester City as well, and they can't afford Liverpool to go ahead and get on top early doors against them at Anfield. I do think Bournemouth could offer something on the break in this one, and how vulnerable Liverpool's back line has looked. I do think they could get a goal, but surely this is where Liverpool start to turn around their fortunes. I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool. FIFA's going for a 1-1 draw. Yeah, they've been a very unpredictable side so far, Liverpool. After that, we head to the Etihad for Manchester City up against Crystal Palace. Not an easy game for City to be walking into, particularly after that 3-3 thriller they had at the weekend against Newcastle. Really quite a bizarre game from Manchester City's point of view, because there were large spells of that game where Newcastle were really the dominant force in terms of the possessions they had, the forward runs, which I'm sure Crystal Palace will look to emulate in this game. And Palace absolutely terrific, I thought, at the weekend against Aston Villa. That result long overdue, given how they'd started the season. On paper, a pretty tough run of fixtures, but the points they've managed to come out of this with, I think they'll really give Man City a good fight in this game. And historically, over the last year or so, Palace have proved to be somewhat of a banana skin in some of these matches for Manchester City. Zaha started the season like an absolute house on fire. Eze, I thought, was fantastic again at the weekend, but Manchester City still have goals about them. I do think Palace will cause a threat, as they did away at Anfield, but at City, it's tough to bank against them, I think. I'm going to go 3-1 Man City. FIFA's going 2-0 Palace. I wouldn't be massively surprised if Palace did sneak a point in that one, but City at the Etihad are just so consistent, aren't they? Next then we go to Arsenal up against Fulham. I have to admit, Fulham have been really taken back by just how competitive they've actually been in the Premier League so far this season. Fantastic stuff, particularly in their 2 matches at home so far, but we saw them obviously pick up a point on the road away at Wolves. This will be a real test for them, but we've already seen them come through that Liverpool game, obviously going toe-to-toe with them earlier on in the season, and Mitrovic causing all sorts of problems to each defence he's come up against so far. Arsenal, very much the form team in the Premier League, albeit we're only 3 games in at the moment. They quite easily dispatched of Bournemouth, so this will be an interesting test to see where Fulham are at compared to them. In terms of Arsenal's attacking play, it's looking fantastically fluid at the moment. Gabriel Jesus continues to impress, but it was probably Odegaard who stole the show at the weekend. I think for a score prediction in this one, I am backing Arsenal, but I think that Fulham definitely have it in them to sneak a goal or two. I'm going to go 4-1 Arsenal in this game. I just think they've looked so good so far this season. FIFA's going for a 1-1 draw. Tough game that for Fulham, but I have been impressed with what I've seen so far. After that, we then head to Aston Villa up against West Ham United. A big game for both teams' seasons, obviously. West Ham in midweek action once again with a European qualifier, which maybe somewhat hindered their performance at the weekend against Brighton. We did mention last time that that could be a little bit of a factor going into that game. Still pointless as things stand, West Ham in this season, but this is an opportunity going to a bang out of form Aston Villa side at this point in time. Villa obviously taking the lead against Crystal Palace at the weekend, but ultimately losing 3-1. I think that Palace were deserved winners in that one in the end. Even with how early on in the season we are, I do think that the pressure is starting to ramp up on Gerrard ever so much, given how much investment has gone into that Villa side over the past couple of transfer windows, and we're not yet to see that consistency that we probably expected Villa to be angling towards this season. I think this is a big game for both teams' seasons, and dare I say it, I think I may be edging towards West Ham, but with Villa with that home advantage, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in this one. FIFA's going for a 1-1 draw. Next then to Wolves up against Newcastle United. An air of frustration about Wolves, and especially over their last 2 games in the Premier League. Not hit the back of the net in either of them, despite creating a bucket full of chances in both games. I actually thought that for everything considered, pound for pound, they actually put in a really good performance against Spurs. Basically did everything apart from hitting the back of the net, and that was the same frustration with that goalless draw they played out against Fulham as well. We did see Jimenez off the bench for Wolves in that game against Spurs, and so that'll be obviously a positive going forward, but just that lack of clinical nature could come up costing Wolves come the end of the season, and particularly in a game like this against the Newcastle side, who I have been really impressed with so far and how tight they've been able to keep things in a lot of their matches. Obviously, their game at the weekend was a bit of a balmy 3-3 draw against Manchester City, but what a display from Newcastle. All the energy that went into that game and the periods of that game that they actually kept the ball away from Manchester City, I think is seriously impressive stuff, even if they didn't go on to win that game in the end. So for a score prediction in this one, I think it is Newcastle who I'm fancying. Been really impressed with them so far, and with Wolves still looking a little bit light in the final third, I'm going to go 2-0 Newcastle, with FIFA going 1-0 Wolves. And as our last game to preview at the City Ground, we've got Nottingham Forest going up against Spurs. Looking forward to this one. Forest obviously picking up a point away at Goodison Park over the weekend. Got that score prediction bang on, which I'm quite happy about. And Nottingham Forest competitive so far in the Premier League. They've shown that even on occasions where the opposition starts to get on top, they carry on plugging away, stay in games and have those breaks and opportunities to go ahead and score. Obviously, Brennan Johnson off the mark in the Premier League this season, which is big from them. They also have the likes of Morgan Gibbs-White and Emmanuel Dennis now both to come into the frame. Both players who I'm really fascinated to see how they settle in at Forest over the course of this season. Gibbs-White especially. I know it's a lot of money that they paid for him, but what he showcased last season at Sheffield United, I've got no doubts that he is ready for a full season in the Premier League. Going up against the Spurs side, who I didn't think were particularly at their best over the weekend against Wolves. Still got the result though, and obviously Harry Kane can come up with those decisive moments, as can any of their forward three really. For a score prediction, I think it is Spurs who I'm just edging towards. I'm going to go 2-0 to the away side. Ultimately, Forest's survival bid this season won't be decided on games like this. It will be, the points they pick up against the likes of, West Ham and Everton, picking up 4 points from their last two. So I see this one being a bit more difficult. I'm going to go 2-0 Spurs. FIFA's going for a 1-1 draw. There we have it though, guys. Those are my score predictions heading into this game week in the Premier League. Do you agree with my selections? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Premier League content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.